Hi folks, it's Björn here, and if you are still looking for an EV manufacturer for your portfolio and you are asking yourself if Tesla, NIO, BYD, LUCID Motors or maybe someone else should be on the list, then I recommend you to look the video until the end. And we are not making the decision alone. Today we are using Ark-Invest Study Big Ideas 2021 on the disruptive technologies for the coming years. So, before we go into individual companies, we first have a look at the study itself. Ark-Invest is assuming gigantic growth for the electric vehicle market over the next few years. In 2025, the sales market for electric vehicles is expected to amount to 40 million cars a year. In 2020, we saw sales of 2.2 million vehicles per year worldwide, which corresponds to 400 times the increase over the next 5 years. Ark-Invest justifies it with the fact that the number of electric vehicles sold could grow enormously, even in a severe crisis like the beginning of 2020. Already in 2019, the number of electric vehicle sales grew by 16%, while the sales of combustion engines fell by 4%, which is particularly noteworthy that in the crisis year 2020, sales rose by 33%, while it fell by 15% for combustion engines. Ark-Invest sees the main point for the growth in Wright's law, and it must be said that Ark-Invest argues with Wright's law for many of its technologies. Theodore Wright, while studying airplane manufacturing, determined that for every doubling of airplane production, the labor requirement was reduced by 10 to 15%. In 1936, he detailed his full findings in the paper Factors Affecting the Cost of Airplanes, now known as Wright's Law or Experience Curve Effects. The paper describes we learn by doing, and the cost of each unit produced decreased as a function of the cumulative number of units produced. For the battery topic, Ark-Invest noted in this context that the trend is precisely following Wright's law, and that for every doubling of the cumulative production of lithium-ion batteries, the costs fall by around 28%. And because the battery is the most expensive compound in an electric vehicle, therefore decreasing prices for electric vehicles keeps decreasing and should reach price parity in 2023. Which means that in 2023 we will no longer have to pay a surcharge for electric cars for comparable vehicles, but instead cost the same as a combustion engine. 2 years later, in 2025, the electric cars should then be cheaper than they would with combustion engines, Ark predicts. In terms of maintenance costs, electric cars are already cheaper than comparable combustion engines. But the price is not always the deciding factor for vehicle buyers. The performance features are also really important. Electric vehicles are not only top class in terms of performance due to the electric motors, the range and the charging speed are also constantly increasing. The auto market is undergoing a shift to both electric and autonomous driving. Ark believes that traditional automakers like GM and etc. lack the software and electrical engineering talent necessary to succeed. An important current development is also the change in the structure of the battery pack production. In the past, the battery cells were packed together in modules, and then these modules turn into module packages, which were then integrated into the vehicle. An important step towards increasing efficiency through weight savings, the battery cells have to be transferred directly into the package, which is then installed directly in the vehicle. whereby safety factors and likelihood of flammability must of course also be taken into account and consideration. And here I must mention BYD, because the BYD tanks blade battery installation recharges from 30 to 80% of full capacity in an impressively short 30 minutes, which is insane. With DC power output of 110 kilowatts, the combination of safe long life cycle and extensive single charge range capability places the BYD blade battery in a class of its own. Further, Ark states that if traditional automakers overcome obstacles, global EV sales could scale roughly 20-fold from 2.2 million in 2020 to 40 million by 2025, which is an increase of 82%. However, the battery is just one building block for the car of tomorrow. Just as important, if not more important for the profitability of companies, is the issue of autonomous driving. Ark assumes that autonomous ride-hailing, which ultimately means autonomous taxi and/or bus rides, will dominate urban mobility. One reason for this is that the cost of a trip should drop dramatically, and at this point Ark-Invest points to the historical cost per mile. Adjusted for inflation, the cost to own and operate a personal car has not changed since the Model T rolled off the first assembly line. Ark estimates that at scale, autonomous taxis and buses will cost consumers 25 cents per mile, spurring widespread adoption. According to Ark's research, the ride-hailing market today generates roughly 150 billion in revenues globally, with the take rates of 10 to 30% and profit margins as high as 50% in high-performance cities. Likewise, autonomous ride-hailing could generate 50% margins, but its lower price point should expand the total market from 150 billion in revenues, with the take rates up to 60%, to 6 to 7 trillion by 2030. The price for autonomous ride-hailing, shown on the slide, would be in the early years of commercialization. Ark expects prices to drop as low as 25 cents per mile as the market scales. Ark-Invest has identified 3 strategies for manufacturers to approach autonomous driving. On the one hand, we have Tesla. They basically only use cameras. And then we have Waymo, Alphabet's subsidiary, that places a great focus on LiDAR and HD maps, which as well is doing NIO. And we have Baidu's Apollo, which also uses external sensors in the environment to make it easier to recognize traffic signs. All strategies have their advantages and disadvantages, however. While Waymo has it easier to make progress in the area of predicting the location of objects, but has it more difficult in the area of decision making. With its simpler camera-based strategy, Tesla has a little easier decision making than Waymo. But the way there is more difficult, because you only rely on the cameras for orientation without having other sources of information. So the neural network in the background has to be based only on cameras that process information and then draws out decisions accordingly, and these cameras sometimes have their disadvantages at night or when it rains, or if there is an object in front or not. But the biggest difference is that Tesla's cameras allow enormous scalability and flexibility, which you can see on the slide. Should Tesla be successful with its path, then Tesla can escalate extremely quickly here than Waymo in comparison, because its strategy is only based on massively available and expensive cameras that are already built into the current cars. Waymo, on the other hand, could perhaps be faster at its test area to achieve full autonomy, but the adoption should take place much more slowly because the mapping is necessary and LiDAR systems are significantly more expensive and are not yet installed to the same extent as the cameras in the current Teslas. And especially the US market is a huge lucrative place for autonomous driving. The reason for this is that the driver costs in the US are significantly higher than in China, but the costs for autonomous driving platform in both the USA and China are around 25 cents per kilometer driven or miles. So the disruptive cost effect would be significantly higher in the USA and would have extensive effects on the overall market. And if you look at the potential market, autonomous driving will be the area in which money is made. And now we come to the question of which company would be a buy if you can believe this study and if the autonomous market develops in this direction. Two developments are really relevant. First, if we could have 40 million electric cars sold by 2025, then it is important to know who can scale to this level and who can throw such a huge number of cars on the market. And secondly, if autonomous driving actually has such enormous effect, who is the first to come onto the market? Now, for the first, it can be clearly stated that the biggest problem in the electric car production are the batteries, because in order to be able to increase the capacities quickly, a large number of batteries is required. And if the growth and the demand should actually be as assumed as by Ark stated, then we also face problems with the raw materials in the near future. So it will be important to integrate battery technology into the own EV company. And I actually see BYD and Tesla way ahead. BYD, its blade battery, and Tesla is also building its expertise towards their own battery cell production. But I would probably say that BYD is ahead of Tesla in regards of battery technologies. And I do not mention LUCID Motors or NIO here on purpose because they, at least I'm not aware of anything, do not work or research on their own battery solutions. But now, if that's true, what Ark and few other analysts predict, then it doesn't really matter how high you increase your electric vehicle production. The margins and the profits will mainly come from autonomous driving. And here you have to say that it is basically only Tesla who is a real automobile manufacturer who pursues a 100% own approach. All others rely more or less on external technologies and approaches. Ark says that conventional automobile manufacturers are years behind Tesla when it comes to software. But what is needed to be added is the following. If Tesla actually manages to advance into the field of autonomous driving first, then Tesla could throw their vehicles on the market at lower manufacturing costs and pushing a large part of the competition from the market, and at the same time to be profitable through the autonomous taxi and bus network. And that is a point a lot do not know, and it's really important. The battery technology is only the price of admission to play along, but whoever wants to be crowned must be the leader of the software and neural network and deep learning. Tesla is perhaps not the number one in battery technology. It is more the Asian battery manufacturers like BYD and so on. And we all know that Tesla is not cheap, but it's the only tech company that is an EV manufacturer. So because of that, Tesla can spark even more disruptive power in the following years than currently, I believe. And if Ark-Invest study proves to be true as described here, then Tesla is way ahead of the others. I assume that in the Asian region, manufacturers like BYD or NIO or XPeng will dominate with Tesla. And in Europe, Tesla and Volkswagen maybe, or Mercedes or BMW, if they make the leap to the e-mobility. But here in the US, I see Tesla at the top, and therefore my critical evaluation for LUCID Motors. And whoever wants to take a look at my stock analysis on LUCID Motors or NIO, I will link them up here. So it all depends on how quickly autonomous driving comes and how long the first mover has the advantage on the market. So you can speculate that Ark-Invest is right and build a position with Tesla, possibly as well with a savings plan. But if you absolutely don't want to invest in Tesla, I still see BYD as an option here, which are quite cheap currently because some banks and analysts have downgraded them. But I am still convinced of BYD because they do a lot of research in battery production and not only produce electric cars, but trucks, buses and all kind of utility vehicles. Otherwise, one could still consider whether to invest in Alphabet or, for example, in lithium, which will be my next video where I will analyze some penny lithium stocks. But please let me know in the comments what you think about the Ark study. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay focused and don't get greedy. See you all next time.